Hey everyone, welcome to Sugar Melts, and I am continuing on my quest of making Christmas cards at the end of the season when I'm running out of time. So normally I have this done way in advance, but as I've shared with some of you, this year has been really busy with 2 moves and 2 jobs, and it's just been really busy. So I made some cards a few weeks ago that I showed you the scrappy strip using Bruno's technique. Today though, what I've been working on has been cards using the bookbinding technique. So the bookbinding technique basically gives you about, whatever you decide here, about an inch bind, so that when you open up your card, it's kind of like a book. So here's one using some taupe colored reindeer paper with a ribbon, and I'll show you, I glue my ribbons inside the bind there. Some people do it on the outside, but I always like it a little more secure. So here's a red and black version with another reindeer because I love the reindeer. And then I did a green version with some Christmas trees. And the card that we're going to make today, it's a little more complicated than these three. It involves some die cutting right into the center. And so I thought, well, this, we'll just see what happens, right? We'll just see what happens. So it's going to be, this card will be what we make today. It's using a Blackberry Bliss and black theme card with, you can see this cutout of a circle, and then one more layer to give it that framing. And inside is the picture that we'll stamp. And then you can do your message one layer inside there. And when you fold it up, it looks like this. And again, the ribbon is glued inside that 1-inch bind. Okay, so that's what we'll do today. So the supplies that I need, I'm using this beautiful stamp set called Snowfront. Whatever design you want to use in that center circle will be fine, whatever you want. I'm just kind of going for something that's less Santa Jingle Bell and more wilderness, less red and green, and a little more, I always love the non-traditional colors in those Christmas cards. So I'm using 3 pieces of paper. The outside of the card, the wrap will be 11 inches by 4 1/4. So take your 11.5 by 8 and cut it in half the long ways, because we're going to be folding it over here in a second. And then the inside frame will be 8.5 by 4. And then the piece that will have your message and your stamping is 8 by 3 7/5. So once we score, you'll see how these all come together. You may be wondering, why is the one so much longer if you only come in by 1/4 inch on each one? Well, remember, we're going to have that binding, that edge that we'll put a ribbon in on the side there. So that's where some of that will be taking up that space. So let me get a scoreboard here, and we'll put this all together. Okay, so here I've got my 11 inches, and I'm going to score it in half at 5.5. And then you want to go out either, now for the ribbon that we'll be using, this one works best with a 1-inch, and it can go either direction for folding. So we'll go to 6.5. But if you're going to use a really small ribbon, or you want a really small edge, you can definitely go in. It doesn't have to be an inch. That is just arbitrary for the style of your card. Okay, so we'll set that aside. And here's our black card, which is 8.5. So we will score that at 4 1/4. And then the white piece for your message, this is 8 inches, so we will score this at 4. Okay, and that's all we need of the scoreboard. And get out my bone folder here, fold these in half. Just get that nice and tight. Go. This one. Set that aside. And this one, I start with the 5.5 fold, and then whichever direction, whichever side is on for the second score, you fold back this way. That make sense? So when we get to that stage of assembly, it'll be right like that. Okay, so then our black piece will be going right there. So again, before I start gluing, I always want to double check and make sure that, since I kind of, you know, wing this sometimes and get things upside down, I just do a double check before I glue anything, make sure everything's opening the direction that I want them to. Okay, so set that aside. The first thing we want to do is we're going to cut a circle in the middle of this. Now you can do this just by eyeballing it, or you can measure it. Oops, there it always jumps on me. I don't know why it does that. So I've got a circle die here. A couple things to remember. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the reason is when we go to do the black circle, we're going to lay that right in the middle after the black piece of paper is glued down. So it doesn't have to be exact. But if you want it to be exact, just break out a ruler and use a pencil. And so we're going to look for the center spot on this. So here we go. We've got 4 1/4, so we're looking at 2 1/8. And it's okay to mark it with a pencil because we're getting ready to cut that circle out, so it won't be visible anyways. So that's 2 1/8. And then we measure from that fold line. Remember, not all the way to the edge. You're going to measure from that fold line to find the center. That's 4 1/2. So we're looking for 2 1/4 against that same line. Wow. I almost got it exact too, didn't I? I was off by a little bit. So that is going to be the midway point. Isn't that right? Yep, it is. Okay, so then I can just kind of erase that one circle, that one dot. And then here's what I'm going to use for the circle. So again, we can measure from the center. So this circle is 3 inches. So what I want to make sure is that that dot right there is at 1 1/2, and it's right in the middle. So there I know I'm in the center. To secure this, what I use is I use washi tape. Other people use different things, I'm sure. Be careful with washi tape. The one thing I would recommend, because even though it's washi tape and it should be like a Post-it, come on really easy, it can be a little stickier than you want, and you don't want it on the outside of the die where it could peel back any of the paper from the card. So I'm really careful here. So let me fold that corner back just to give it right on the edge. Doesn't need to be a lot, just to hold it in place on the inside, because that's just going to be cut out anyways. So there we go. So see how I've got none of the washi on the outside here, because I don't want to tear a little bit of that paper off when I'm doing this process. So then I'll get my die machine out. Okay. Make my little sandwich here. Got my cutting boards out. Open it up. Get it. I like to make sure my dies are always as centered as possible, because that's where the pressure is going to be the most even. Okay. And then put that on there. And this is a nice die because it's not real intricate, so it's not going to take going through multiple times, but I do like to go through at least twice, just because, you know, I am on camera. And what a mess that would be if it didn't go through for some reason. So there we go. So that should be a nice clean cut. Look at that, popped right out. Super easy. Okay, so there we go. We've got that circle cut out. Okay, get that out of the way. So now what we're gonna do is get ready for the black piece insert that will go inside. Okay, so I'm just going to hold down where that binder piece is going to be. Again, double check to make sure I got my card going the right way. And I'm going to glue this down here. Okay, so get out some glue. I don't want it real thick because I want it to dry pretty fast. I don't want it real lumpy, but I do want to make sure that it holds. Kind of hard to see. I've got this black on black here. Sorry about that. I meant to flip this over. before I started. So I apologize if that's hard to view. Okay, so holding this piece down, we're gonna center this. Oopsie, there I go again. I can get these things upside down no matter how hard I avoid it. It always seems to happen. So always double check before you start pushing. There you go. That's the side. So then I'm just gonna kind of give this a second here to get nice and firm, nice and dry. This glue is great because it does dry really fast. It doesn't take a long time for these to create that bond. Okay, so then we had our first circle that we cut out, and this is another circle die, the next innermost. You can go smaller if you like, depending on your colors, but by just laying it right inside here, I don't have to measure now on the black piece to make sure that it's, you know, perfect. That just creates another layer of complexity. So this way, I'm just, again, I'm going to put that washi tape on there just enough to be on the die and hold. Doesn't need to be all the way around. You're just giving it a little bit of security there. And it does still move even with the washi tape, so you kind of have to hold it in place. I'm just trying to keep my head out of the frame. Got a little bit on the edge there, and then this really small piece I'll put right there. Perfect. Okay, so you may be wondering, well, how are you going to do this? I will show you. Bring the die machine back. And now I'm going to open it up like this, and that's all I have to cut out. Isn't that great? So they're going to match. They're going to be perfectly aligned. And it didn't take but just a second and a ruler. It didn't take a lot of fancy work to make it go through perfectly. So that's how you get that perfect frame. And it's going to pop right out. There we go. See? Popped right out. Perfect. So for me, that is the easiest way if you want to make a frame. And of course, if you have squares, use squares. If you have rectangles, it's all good. Okay, so I'll get those out of the way. So now we've got this already set to go. And then I've got somewhere, here's the white paper. So the white, what I want this to look like is it to go like this, then it'll be like this. And I'm gonna have the white card right here, opening up, so measuring again, and I'm gonna have this stamped with the deer and the trees and stuff. So it'll look like that. That's where we're going, okay? Alrighty, so it's very important for me to always make sure that a card opens this way when I'm doing this. And then I've got my little rubber mat, piece of scratch paper, and the inks that I'm going to be using are black. I'll use gray, I'm going to need navy, and some dark green. This is actually a new color that's available if you like Stampin' Up. It's their Evening Evergreen. And I will start with my mountain scene. Let's do that in gray. Okay. So I like to always have scrap paper in case my ink goes off, my stamp goes off, but also for stamping off and testing how dark I want this to look. So I think I'll use the full stamp, but I'm just gonna not go down real dark on that. So let's do like that. Perfect. And then I'm gonna put some trees. I do love trees. Okay, so I've got, that's not the trees that I want. So here's a nice big tree. Pretty. So if you want them to look like it's a mountainside, stamp off first and stamp up high with your lighter. And then the closer you're in, they should be darker. Does that make sense? So that'll be darker. Stamp off. Nice light tree. And then a dark tree. That's almost on top of each other there. So we'll do that one. And then I'll do one more light one over here. That didn't come out really well. So I can go right over that. Perfect. Okay, I've got some smaller trees here, but before I do them, I want to give it sort of this road effect or snow, layers of snow, that snow is piling up. Does that make sense? Like ridges on the mountainside. So that's what these nice little gray indentions kind of can look like, that there's sort of this snowy field going on. There. And then we'll do one more over there. Maybe two more over here. And then and just keep adding. The times I've found that when I'm not satisfied with an image, it's usually because I've left it incomplete. It just needs more. And so sometimes if you just keep playing with it, it will come together. If you just keep adding other trees or adding other images to it, it will kind of help bring it all together. So there's another tree, another shadow of a tree. And then I've got even a smaller one here. So we just keep kind of playing with the image. And then I'm going to put my deer, and I want the deer to be the focal point. So I'm going to make them put them in black ink. Let me double check, make sure I've got it very well inked. I think so, I've been using it all afternoon. So let's put them like right there in the middle. Cute. And then I want to do some shading on the side. So I'm using for the shading, Night of Navy is what I've been using. I'm not sure why, it just sort of, that's what came to me today. So I use these little daubers, but there's different kinds of sponges that you can use. When I use these daubers, I label them because once they dry, let me see if I've got it here to show you. So here's my little pack of them. It's not always very obvious what color they are once they're dried. So by labeling them all with a white marker, or whiteout would work really well for that, then you can always make sure you're not crossing your inks at all. So I just sort of load this up, and I'm not going to need a lot. I just want to give it a shadow on the side. There we go. And I don't want all the ink on here, so I always start on the side, because you can always add, but you don't want that big glob that doesn't look like it's blending well. So here we go. We just keep kind of adding. There we go. So just giving some shadow, some depth that evening. When the deer tend to start showing up before they bed down for the night, you know, just that peaceful mountain Christmas concept. So there we go. And just keep adding until you're satisfied with it. Okay, so there we go. So that looks pretty good. And then I'll stamp a little Christmas message on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to double check, make sure I'm perfect. It's up, go in the right direction. Okay. And sorry for my head. Christmas cheer. Okay, time for final assembly. Okay, so here's our card. So what we'll do then is we're gonna secure this on the inside. You of course, so there, you have room here if you wanted to add something else to it. You can see, I think it looks really nice like that. I may actually want to add a little more blue now that I see that there's no blue showing up. Just a little more down by, so it falls into the image, if that makes sense, inside that circle. I just want a little bit of blue in there. So there we go. And then the rest looks like snow. So I got a little bit of a dark glob there, as you can see. So what I do with those is I just keep going over it with a sponge, and it gets absorbed into the image quite well. Every now and then you get a little spot and you're like, oops, I didn't mean that to be so obvious. So you just keep going over it. Okay, there we go. I like it. I like it a lot. Okay. So here we go. Here we go. And the nice thing about this, of course, is that you can mass produce this card for Christmas if you want to. You can certainly use other combinations, other stamp sets that you have. This is such a great, but what I wanted to really show you with this is how you can make this, just give it that extra touch. That little layer there is so lovely. And then for the ribbon, the way I do the ribbon, where did the ribbon go? Here we go. So what I do, and so I get enough that it's going to go basically all the way around. Doesn't have to be perfect. So, so that's about good there. Cut a piece off. And I start with just some quick tape here that will hold it, but I'm going to ultimately glue it. I think glue just holds so many things a much longer period of time. So this will just at least hold the ribbon nice and kind of, you want to get straight inside there. Okay. And then I'll put glue. And this is a nice ribbon because it's, the glue will go through it to the paper to give it a nice seal. There's a little bit more glue than I wanted there. Okay. And then we just hold that for a minute, and that's going to give a great seal. Okay. Okay. And then we're going to just tie a knot onto this outside to make it really easy. Okay. So I'm going to take another piece of ribbon here. And I'm going to slide it under, and I'm going to, you can do a bow or a knot depending on the type of ribbon that you have, the type of card that you make. But this is kind of cheater's way, if you will. So I just do like that. This ribbon, as you can see, would not be good for a bow because it just doesn't want to hold. It's got that real flimsy texture to it. So a knot with this kind of ribbon works much better. It won't come loose as a knot, but as a bow, I wouldn't trust it. So, and then if you hold them both up at the same time, you can make sure that you get them exactly even in their length. There we go. And there's my Christmas card. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. Hope I taught you something new today. And I'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks.